What role does your outer world play with your spiritual growth? So we spoke about the male, female, that now we're speaking about the color tone. So now we're speaking about other things, perception, interaction with the outer world. So your skin tone has been the object of, it's been the point of scrutiny in your life. How do you how has that affect, if it has affected your spiritual growth? How do you still grow spiritually with with something like that, like those things, those outside forces continuously knocking and beating at your door, and being trying to be a hindrance? How do you spiritually continue to spiritually grow with your outside world being as it is?
I mean, I think what mom was very good at with us was teaching us this is their problem. So when I was a small child in school and children was telling me I was burnt in the oven and all this foolishness, when I tell mom, she'd say it's not the child, it's the parent. So for me, it's the same with colorism. It's like, unfortunately, you've been brainwashed to hate yourself because that's, you believe in a rhetoric that has been designed to divide us, divide and conquer. And as Irijah's saying, if you extend that out, you can extend that all the way out to humanity as a whole, not just between us as black people. They've created these divisions so that we won't stand united. You know what I mean? And those divisions go smaller and smaller and smaller. Right now, it's down to sexuality and whether you're transgender and all this other stupidness, right? That people genuinely don't care about until they start creating these stories, these virtual stories that, do you think most people go around going, I can't stand somebody that was born a man and thinks they're a woman? Most people don't care. Like, they're too busy feeding their kids and cleaning their house and doing their job. It's just to divide us up. And I think that essentially, what was the question? How does your inner world affect your outer world?
How does the outer world affect your spiritual growth? Like, so how does the outside influences affect your spiritual growth, if it does?
Yeah, you just gotta, just to close off my big mouth because I could go on about it all day. You gotta really break away, and I've been doing it. Break apart that programming, and I'm well aware that we are the generation. My mom didn't grow up with TV. They were lucky if they had a radio, so their minds were freer. We are the generation programmed deeply with the TV. And I was saying to Millie the other day, everyone would watch the same programs. You'd come home from school and you'd watch the same children's programs, and then you'd all watch EastEnders and Coronation Street. So that's how deep the programming was. And they would program you through those soap operas, So for me, it's just it's a constant awareness to have the clarity on, where do I get this opinion from? And most of the opinions that I have, especially that are highly judgmental, aren't real. They've been programmed into me, and I can just release them like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, anybody else who wants to answer the question, but for me, then that's good. It's not that easy for me, like I still fall short. Like, even though I know in my mind, like, like that's their problem, and I could even say it to myself, like that's them, like that's their issue. That has nothing to do with me. Even if it's pertaining to me, has nothing to do with me or whatever. That's their issue. I try to say that, but there's still a good portion of time where my whole body gets hot, my hands get my palms get sweaty, my ears start ringing, my heart starts palpitating mad fast, and I had the thought to do something stupid. So I'm still working on that, but I still try. I still tell myself those things. I still tell myself like it's a perception, like it's how you perceive it. Still tell myself these things. I try to walk myself through the pros and the cons, but sometimes in a split second of a moment, I'm not gonna lie. Even if I have the idea to sit and think about it, sometimes I don't care. I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to react right then and there. So spiritually, like I've grown in the sense of I can realize that. Like I'm conscious of those moments where I'm ignoring the fact that I'm choosing to continue on, or like I'm choosing to ignore the good thing. So I know I'm spiritually evolving in that way, because before, like, I wouldn't think about it until after I had the outburst or flipped out or the crash out. Then I'll be like, dang, I did it again. Now I could before, but my outer world, it very much affects me. It very much affects me because I'm very much a person that I'm an empath. I'm very sensitive, like, to things around me. I'm very sensitive to injustices. I'm very sensitive to like people being hurt for no reason. Like that's just the real thing about me. So when I see certain things, like I get really mad. I get really upset. Like um, so that's my issue. But I'm growing. I'm growing. I don't know how I'm growing. I guess it's just being consistent. Consistency is like one of my favorite words. Just being consistent, even though a lot of times I'm like, dang, like I feel like I'm moving backwards, or I feel like I'm not progressing the way I want to. For me, it's just keep going, keep telling myself the things I'm telling myself, because it is working. Because like I said, I could see the issue before it would be after or during. Now I can see it before. It's just a matter of doing what's right. You know what I'm saying? But my outside, and I feel like my outside world, it's like something about the energy that when I'm really really trying, it's like the energy of the outside knows, and it goes harder to piss me off. You know what I'm saying? So I'd say that to myself too. Like I tell myself a lot, like, all right, this is a test. This is a test. Okay, you want this to happen because you need to get stronger. I tell myself all of these things. All of these things I tell myself. But the best thing for me is working out, learning something, and like elevating myself, like so I can feel good about myself. Because even though those are physical things and those are not really spiritual things, they do help me spiritually because I feel more confident. I feel like I could keep going, I could keep pushing it. So for me, I know that was a long-winded answer, but that's me. I'm all over the place and I'm trying still.
But I want to just add, Big Mouth Kaz again, that you're in a tested environment. New York is known globally. New York says it itself about itself, that it's a testing environment. So your environment alone is going to give you more challenge. I'm in a little suburban place where I can walk down the street and not see anybody. You know what I mean? That's the reality of where I live right now. And I've lived in London, which is like the other New York. So I know what that's like. So I think for you, like, don't be too hard on yourself because your environment is a challenging environment. There's loads of beautiful things about New York, but it's going to challenge you in a way that somewhere else won't.
True.
Yeah.
To further validate that point, I mean, you actually you're pushed to learn in overdrive, right? Because you have all of these different vantage points that you have to look at the same time and learn from and evolve from. I come from a space where this is what it is. There's an undertone of Confederacy and segregation. You stick to this label, and that's it. In New York, there's a melting pot of different things and themes that you're exposed to that you can elevate and learn from. I would venture to say in certain areas it can be harder to find your way when you have so many different options, for lack of a better word. In a preconditioned place like where I grew up with to get back to the colorism point. Um, the challenge is not just to adjust to who you are. The challenge is also to try to find your voice, I would say. And I think that's true in all atmospheres, all family dynamics. Like even in on the Caucasian side of the spectrum, they have this thing about Irish people. They have this thing about people with red hair, like the ginger thing, like different cultures, different languages, even Hispanic communities. Like if you're from Brazil, there's a different type of Hispanic than someone who's from Mexico. Uh, all of these different cultural dynamics, I think, have been commandeered, have been infiltrated by these societal things that are designed to keep us apart. Going back to the original point, like I think that there's a larger discussion about the fact that the powers that be who initially started, this toxicity knew that if we, assimilated in our original purpose, which is to be unified in our differences and to learn and love one another, we would supersede what they want, which is the capitalism, which is the hierarchy of, well, I'm better than you, and you can't ascend to where I am. I think that's the foundation that they built that's crumbling right now. So, how the outside world affects your spiritual growth is learning and seeing that in real time. Like the fact that you can catch yourself and not crash out, before and when before you would just as easily argue with someone over something small, shows that energy, right? Shows that you're not in the same place that you were. And I think a lot of people are in that same spot, whether it's the 15-year-old or the 50-year-old. I think this time that we're living in now is an interesting time where we have the experience of those who had more mental freedom, and we have those with all of these advantages and all this access, and then we have the people in the middle, like my generation, the millennial generation, who had the exposure of both and who realized that both are important. That collective mentality and education creates magic. And I think that is how, our outer world can affect our spiritual growth as a whole. If we continue to grasp at these straws and build upon them, with that consistency, with that discipline, with that willingness to have the tough conversations and do the thing that nobody else wants to do, even though they've been preconditioned that way, that's the difference. And that's how we evolve.
Oh. I found this question really interesting. I considered looking at the outer world. I said if you look at the environment like soil, right? And you are the seeds. Like we are seeds in our outer world environment is the soil. If our outer world environment is fertile, right? We will reap the harvest, the bounty, the rewards that we have planted, right? So that means, like, to me, I see it as a container. Like this outer world is a container for our spiritual growth. We get to be the seeds to plant in these different locations and work and family and social circles. We get to plant ourselves. We get to put our energy, our those characteristics who we are in those places. And if they are fertile, or if there are positive environments, if they are supporting our goals, our mission, right, then we will excel, right? We will reach that level of spiritual enlightenment. But that's only if those things are the case. However, there are some of us, I think those of us who aren't here, where maybe our outer world environment didn't always create a fertile space for us. So we had to then go, like, do what we're doing now, right? Seek out those spaces. So I even look at it as like, you have the concrete, but then you got the cracks and you see grass growing up or roses growing up. It's all about perception. It's all about, like, this outer world is not for me, or I can't develop myself spiritually because of my outer world. But if we look at that
we're in a container and we can plant ourselves wherever we are, then it's like, oh, well, what do I want to create? What possibilities, what flowers do I want it to look like? I could create seeds where everybody's an empath because I'm teaching them that. I'm being the model of that. So if my outer world is not matching how I'm feeling, then yeah, I won't develop spiritually. But if I'm aware, like that perspective that I can implement, I can put myself in that space and change the color. My light will radiate, right? Right. I see you smile. My light will then radiate and bring light and bring, just the spotlight on what really needs to be seen. I think that is like that opportunity for the spiritual growth to happen when we realize like, oh, okay, there's something I can do. There's work to do, and I'm ready to do it. Right. I had this moment where when I went on this retreat, one of the questions in the application says, do you have any family problems at home? And I laughed because it was like, we had just had an argument, but I made sure before I got on that plane, I was like, I love y'all so much. You know what I mean? Because who knows what's going to happen? You don't know. And so for me, it's always, not always, but I look at like, how can I clean it up? Or, just so that there's love, because for me, that's what my spiritual growth is about. It's not about changing anybody. It's just about leaving behind a legacy of love. So if I'm able to do that, to me, then I've reached my enlightenment, right? Because maybe in another life, it wasn't love. It was like violence and like, all this other stuff. So I look at now like, oh, this outer world has a lot of contrast or, a lot of resistance to who I am. So how can we balance in that? And everybody gets enlightened in that regard. So it's work. And I think that's the work that's the purposeful work that we're here to do. And then I think that we're learning through every day, right? How the role that we get to play is going to shape that outer world for our spiritual development. So, yeah.
And can I say, I've got to say this before I lose it, because it feels like I need to say it. We said it in the first show that you've got to allow people to grow. So I think one of the challenges I see and I'm very aware of as a parent, and Oprah just did a show about children that are cutting off their parents and all this, is that our perception, society's perception has changed. So it's like this changes. I don't know if they're for the better. I don't know, if where our generation have, or generations before us even, would find forgiveness and find a way. Like you hear like my mom's generation talking about, I've heard this from a few older people, how terrible some of their elders can be, but they still go and look after them. They'll still go and cook them dinner and, take care of them. I don't know if the love and the patience is still being promoted in that way. And I think that's what part of our job, because if I hadn't had forgiveness and patience for some of my elders, I wouldn't have a relationship with them. And they're not the same as they were 20 years ago. So I'd be losing out now, and the same with me. I'm not the same as I was 20 years ago. So if people were choosing whether to interact with me from how I was as a 25-year-old, I'm not the same person. So I think that as well. And the other thing I wanted to just add is that what you're saying, Irijah, makes me think about destiny and whether you believe it's written. And because I believe everybody's put where they need to be put. I believe in that whole, you choose your parents, you choose your environment, So it's all divine, and it all, like me and the racism as a young child, I used to say to people, I should hate white people, really. I should hate them from the way they've treated me. But that's not what my heart says. My heart says, my heart doesn't say to hate. It's not in my nature to hate. It's in my nature to understand and see that they were taught that, and they, it's not who they are. And I've met many white people. Some of my best friends are white. So if I'd have had hate in my heart, I wouldn't have people in my life that I have now. So I think that bit as well, I just wanted to express.
Thanks for that. So when I'm thinking about this question, it's something that we had a household discussion the other day, and me dealing with a level of stress came up. And in that discussion, I was able to actually reframe how I was relating to that as, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, to I get to do this with these people that are skilled at what they do. And I just think my outer world adds to my soul's progression, similarly to how what Tone stated. The more I experience, the more my awareness grows, right? And I don't get overly moved by the small stuff. Not to say it doesn't trigger me, but I'm not as triggered as I was. And how I deal with stress is similar, like to being in the gym. I know that doing a certain amount of reps and a certain amount of weight is going to cause that pressure to, I'm going to go to failure, but that's when I'm going to see growth. So that's my piece on that. What role does our outer world play in our spiritual growth?
Be the change you want to see, man. As long
Yeah.
as the change is positive. Truthfully, I think that's the overall premise of this. Be the change you want to see, because clearly some people don't necessarily have it right. Some people don't know. Some people don't want to know. So it's up to those who are
Can you speak a
on
little
the
louder?
exploration, on the journey to do.
I didn't hear you.
I don't think Tone heard you.
No, I didn't hear you. I didn't
You
hear
gotta
you.
repeat that. That was some good stuff. Repeat it
Yeah.
because I heard you. Repeat that,
Yeah.
please.
Say it for the people in the back.
Yeah.
Be the change you want to see in the world. It is of the utmost importance because there are some that don't know, some that don't want to know. So, for the people who are on that exploration, who are in the middle, who have been on both sides of the spectrum, it is up to us to show people what that divine balance looks like, for lack of better words. There are some things that we need to unlearn immediately, and there are certain things that we need to recultivate because it's been forgotten. That's being the change, that's spreading the love, that's being understanding of different people, places, and situations.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. And you know what? We're talking about the outer world, and that's another part of the third question. Is like, how do we consistently reframe our mindset now to structure our inner and outer world, having that balance?